We have in the first reading a prophecy from Isaiah, and Isaiah is speaking, I think, about himself, and he's also speaking about perhaps John the Baptist, and he's most definitely speaking about Jesus. We remember that the prophecies of the Old Testament, the many prophets that speak, are oftentimes talking about Jesus as the perfect fulfillment of their prophecy. But then we have these imperfect or lesser fulfillments, still fulfillments. So when the prophet Isaiah is talking about being a polished arrow in the quiver, a sword in the hand to bring about justice, and then he comes down, I will make you a light to the nations, that my salvation may reach the ends of the earth. Let me back up. It is too little, he says, for you to be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob and restore the survivors of Israel. So Jacob and Israel are two names for the same thing, okay? The nation of Israel, the people, God's chosen people, the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The prophet that God is going to raise up is going to not just restore Israel and Jacob, he's going to bring light to the whole world. And that's Jesus. Jesus, the light of the world. Jesus who comes to restore not just Israel, but all of us to God's family. Now, to the gospel for a moment. In this tragic scene around at the Last Supper, and Jesus is saying, one of you will betray me. Who is it? We know it's Judas. They didn't know who it was. Judas had apparently kept his treachery close to his vest. But Jesus knew. And it's interesting that he says, one of you will betray me. And then Judas is singled out, if you will. But Peter is going to stumble and fall pretty bad too. But we have this kind of contrast already developing between Judas and Peter. Judas is planning his treachery. Judas has put together things. Judas has been thinking ahead of how this is going to go and how I'm going to profit from this. And Peter, he's like, hey, I'm all in. I'll die with you. Now, Peter doesn't know how weak he is. Peter thinks he can carry the cross. He thinks he can follow Jesus. He thinks he can do it on his own, and he's testifying that. But when push comes to shove, Peter is going to deny Jesus. Now, Judas and Peter, I hate to say mortal sin and venial sin, but that's what comes to my mind. Full knowledge, full consent to the will, grave matter. Peter, he wants to do right, but in the circumstances, his weakness takes over and he fails. And then he repents and he weeps bitterly. So Judas and Peter, you know, my brothers and sisters, we're all going to sin and fall short of the glory of God, aren't we? May we repent as Peter did and seek the mercy of God.